name's Sarah Jade and welcome to my channel, where we talk about true crime, unsolved cases and more. In this week's case, we're going to talk about the chilling case of Jennifer Pan. Vic and Han Pan migrated from Vietnam to Canada in 1979 looking for a better life for their children. They had their son first, and a few years later they had their daughter Jennifer in Markham, Ontario. Jennifer grew up with her brother in a middle-class household. Her parents had both worked at an automotive company. They'd worked really hard and saved up everything they could to give their children a better life. Because they wanted a better future for their children and not to end up with jobs like them, they wanted them to work really hard, so they were very strict on their parenting. They wanted them to achieve very high in their grades. They saw success and achievement as an obligation, and in their culture this is called tiger parenting. In her brother's case, her father wanted him to work at the automotive company, but not as a worker but as a boss. So he studied hard and went on to do mechanical engineering at one of the finest universities in Canada. Jennifer put all her effort into ice skating. She really liked it and was very good at it, and even was going to take part in the Winter Olympics. However, when she was 14, she had a knee injury and had to pull out. She was told that she'd never be able to skate again, and her dreams were vanished. Another issue that Jennifer was upset about was now that she couldn't compete in ice skating, she had to find another way to please her parents. And the only other way she could do this was through her academics. However, the problem was that Jennifer wasn't as good as her academics as her ice skating. She was an average C-grade student and wasn't getting the A's that her parents wanted. As her parents were so strict and she didn't want to upset them, she started to forge her report cards and her grades. Her grades started to suffer even more, and soon she wasn't even able to finish high school. However, she faked her high school diploma to show her parents that she had finished school. After finishing school, she was expected to go to university. However, she hadn't got the grades and she knew she wouldn't get into university, so she forged an acceptance letter to one of the top universities in Canada called Ryerson University. Her parents first wanted her to be a doctor, but as she was scared of blood, they decided pharmacology was a good idea. So she told her parents that she would spend 2 years at the University of Ryerson, then transfer over to the University of Toronto to do pharmacology. So while her parents thought she was well on her way to get a great career, she was actually a college dropout, living with her drug dealer boyfriend. Jennifer had met Daniel Wong about 8 years ago and they'd been dating ever since. She had met him in 11th grade and had bonded during band practice. However, her parents were very strict and would only let her go to school and come back again. They wouldn't let her see boys and they thought that this would disrupt her studies, so she wasn't allowed a boyfriend. Due to this, her and Daniel had to hide their relationship, and they'd been going out for 8 years and her parents didn't even know. So that her parents didn't have to pay or get involved with her studies, she decided to tell them she got an all-inclusive scholarship so they didn't have to pay anything for her studies. She then went on to lie for 2 years, pretending that she was studying at the university, when really she'd just leave the house every day and come back in the evening. After 2 years, she had to transfer to the University of Toronto, like she told her father, so she forged another acceptance letter into the university. This time, however, she told her parents that she wanted to live with one of her friends, as they lived nearer to the university. Little did they know that she was actually moving in with her boyfriend. The lies carried on for another 2 years, but finally she had to graduate from university. She took the lie even further and told her parents that she'd given away her ticket to graduation as someone else needed it. Obviously, after university, she had to find a job, so she told her parents that she'd got a job at the local hospital working in the blood lab. However, her parents started to get a little bit suspicious, as they thought it was a bit weird that she didn't have any uniform or a lab coat or anything like that. So one day they decided to take her into work. As they got to the hospital, Jennifer ran out and ran and hid in the ER department. They came round the hospital looking for her, but couldn't find her anywhere. When they got home, they decided to call her friend and find out if she'd been living there. When they spoke to her, she said that she hadn't seen her in quite a while. When Jennifer got home that day, they sat her down and interrogated her. They asked her what had been going on and had she really been living with her friend. Jennifer finally cracked and started to tell them some of her lies. She told them that she hadn't gone to university and she wasn't working at the hospital, but she didn't go as far as tell them that she hadn't even graduated from high school. Her parents were so cross at this, they couldn't believe that she'd been lying all this time, and they finally gave her an ultimatum. Her first option was to stay at home and live under their strict regime. She would have to apply for university and go back to studying. She wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere other than to school and to teach piano. She would also be banned from seeing her boyfriend. The second option was that she could do whatever she wanted. However, her family disowned her and stopped supporting her in any way. Jennifer decided that she had to live with her parents, as family came first and she had to do whatever she could to make them happy. However, she became more and more depressed as she couldn't see her boyfriend, and he finally broke up with her as he said, "There's no point being together as we can't even see each other." He went on to date other people and Jennifer just got more and more upset. They finally did get back together, but they couldn't see how they could make their relationship work. On Monday the 8th of November, around 11 p.m, Jennifer was at home with her parents when 3 men entered the house. Around 18 minutes later, Jennifer phoned 911. Her mum had been shot twice, one in the neck and one in her head, and she died immediately. Her dad had also been shot twice, one in the shoulder and one in his face, but miraculously he survived. On the 911 call you can hear him getting up and trying to escape from the house. He was taken to hospital and put in a induced coma. Jennifer was also taken to hospital, but they checked her out and couldn't find any injuries. She sat for about 3 hours with her father before the police turned up and asked her to come down to the station just to go through the events of the evening. They start to ask her questions about her day.
Now I want you to sort of take yourself back to earlier on today, yesterday, meaning the 8th of November, and tell me about your day.
Because I have some piano history stuff that I'm working on. So I was doing that on the computer, played a little piano. I forget what time my mom came home, probably around like 3:30. My father came home later than usual. Well, my mom had prepared dinner because she was heading to go dancing that night, line dancing. She does it every Monday. And so her and I sat down for dinner first. And then after my father came home, he did that. And then a friend of mine came over. We do TV night every so often. So my dad, I guess, went up on the computer as he always does, and I was downstairs with my friend watching movies, and my mom was out dancing. My friend left around 9, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then I upstairs in my room, called it a night with the TV on, talking on the phone with a friend of mine.
Her dad was in the study and her mum had just got home and was doing stuff downstairs. All of a sudden she'd heard her mum got really upset and started shouting for her dad to come downstairs.
And I could hear the voices weren't any voices I was very familiar with. And so I was scared and I couldn't move. I just sat in my room for a while. And then I thought I heard them all leave the top floor, and I peered out of my bedroom door. And a guy was there and he came at me and had string in his hands and tied my arms back and said, "I have a gun behind your back. Do what I say. If you do what I say, then no one will get hurt. Where is the money? Show me where your money is." So I showed him where it was, and he took it and put it in his pocket, I think. In which then they dragged me down the stairs and made me kneel at the bottom, telling me to face down on the floor while the other guy had a gun behind my head, and asked my mom where her purse was. My mom kept trying to get up, and they kept telling her to sit down, and so I didn't want her to get hurt, so I told her, "Mom, sit down." They kept pushing her down onto the chair.
Okay. Take your time. Take your time. All this is very important, so take your time.
They kept all the lights off on the main floor. The only time there was light was when they opened the fridge door to see if they could find where my mom's purse was. At that point, I saw 3 figures of men.
They then wanted to look for her father's wallet. So as Jennifer was at the bottom of the stairs, They took Jennifer upstairs with them. The whole room was ransacked and she had to help them find his wallet between all the mess. When they finally found about $1,100, they took her out and tied her up to the banister.
The next thing I know, I think I heard my parents going down the stairs, and my mom was asking them for me to come with them. They wouldn't let me come with them.
Jennifer said the next thing she heard was that the men were saying, "You lied to me, you didn't tell me the truth."
Then I heard 2 pops. My mom screamed. I yelled out for her. Then a couple more pops.
Take your time. Take your time.
And I think I heard my mom say or moan or something, and then they did one more before they left, and then one of the guys said, "We have to go now, it's been too long."
During her interview, although she wasn't a suspect, the police started to get a little suspicious of her. They couldn't understand how, if she was tied to the banister with her arms behind her back, how she could call 911. They also thought the robbery and break-in was very suspicious, and they asked her, "Who do you think could have done this? Why do you think your family were targeted? It just seems very strange. Did your parents have loads of money inside the house? Did someone know about it? Were you involved in any crime? Why would these people come to your house?" But she couldn't really give an answer. She said maybe it's because of her parents' cars. They were driving quite nice cars, and maybe they'd seen it and thought that maybe they had more money in their house. They also couldn't understand, as if this family was targeted, why was she left alone? Why were both her parents shot, but she didn't receive any injuries at all? She said it's because she'd done what they told. When he'd held a gun to her face, he said, "I won't hurt you if you just do as you're told." And as she'd helped them find the money, she believes they had just left her alone. After her questioning, she became an unofficial suspect, due to the way she'd answered the questions and her demeanour. In the interview, she seemed quite calm most of the time. There were some points that she was quite upset, but a lot of it looked like she was faking it. Due to this, they called her in 2 days later at 9 AM for more questioning. She thought she was just helping in the case, but actually they were collecting information to go against her. When they started questioning her again, there seemed to be a lot of holes in her stories that she couldn't remember. She told them it's because the day was a lot for her and she couldn't remember things and they were all getting jumbled up.
Or from any time in that day where you want to start, if it's the time you woke up or if it's the time that your first interaction, it's your choice.
Okay, I'm very nervous, and
Why are you nervous? Tell me about why you're nervous.
because I don't want to say the wrong things.
Because
that day was a lot.
You're right.
And I've been scattered, and so bits and pieces are here and some pieces aren't here, and
She started to change her story about who was tying her up, when she was tied up, who was wearing what, and who was saying what. Knowing that she was changing things and her stories weren't matching up, she started to get very uncomfortable and started making excuses for herself. She also again went from grief-stricken to very calm during her questioning.
I can't hear clearly because I was on the phone and the TV was on,
Sure.
but that's what I heard.
Is she yelling? Or is it normal?
It's a loud, she's not yelling, but it's a loud tone.
Another thing they decided to do was to get her to show them how she got the phone out of her pocket. To their surprise, she was able to show them exactly how she moved the phone from the back of her pocket and was able to dial 911.
Can you show me? Can you stand up and turn around and tell me, just show on the camera, how your hands are bound?
I tied my upper arm
Yes?
around the banister,
Yes?
but my hands were bound together.
So your hands bound together, and this is the arm that's the strings wrapped around against the banister?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now how can you get to the phone? And how do you make the phone call?
After initial questioning about the event, they started to ask her about her background. They wanted to find out if there was any motive to why she would have done this. She quite happily opens up and tells them about everything that was going on, about how she had lied to her parents and how they'd been quite strict on her. And they start to ask her if she had resentment towards them, and maybe that's why she did it. But she denies all this and says, "No, I love my family, and it's just how we all got brought up."
How did you feel about that? How did you feel about having to lie to your parents?
I felt guilty, but every time I tried to bring it up, there was just so much expectation.
Did you have any resentment towards them for this?
I I chose what I chose. But in the end, I chose my family.
After all the questioning, Jennifer is quite shook up, but she leaves the police station, believing that the police are still on her side. However, the police had put surveillance on her and started to monitor her every move. They also watched her at her mum's funeral and saw she didn't shed a single tear and was just looking down at the ground the whole time. Her father had bullet fragments in his face that couldn't be removed, and he'd shattered his neck bone. However, miraculously, he started to get better, and a few days later he went to the police and told them that he remembered everything. So on November 16th, he gave an official statement to the police, and multiple parts of his story contradicted what Jennifer had said. He told them that Jennifer was never tied up, and Jennifer was hanging around with the guys as if they were her friends. She was talking to all of them and was there when her mum was shot. This was also the reason that he didn't go looking for his daughter when he woke up. He ran straight out the house to his neighbour's house, as he knew that his daughter was involved. He had a phone call with Jennifer, but they told him to act as if he didn't remember what happened, and just ask her if she thought her boyfriend was involved. She said that he wasn't involved, and it wasn't him that entered the house. The only problem with her father's statement was that he had got minor brain damage during the gunshot wound. This meant that it could be used against him in court, and his statement could be thrown out. This meant the police had to get more evidence against Jennifer to make their case solid. They had to get a confession out of her, so they decided to bring her in for one more round of questioning. So on the 22nd of November, about a week and a half after the event, they brought Jennifer in for more questioning. She thought they were just asking questions about the day so they could help them in the case, but actually they were interrogating her to get a confession out of her. They started speaking to her and building up a relationship with her, and building up the concept that her parents had been quite strict and controlling over her, and they didn't blame her if she'd done this. They brought up her boyfriend and how upset she would have been not being able to see him, and what they'd done to her.
Not face reality here. We know that you're involved. We've done our homework, okay? We have to resolve that now, here today. I need to know from you what really happened. And I know why this has happened. You have spent your whole life trying to live up to expectations that you can't meet, okay? And that stressed the hell out of you. You're a 24-year-old woman being treated like a 15-year-old, okay? You've never done anything that terrible in your life, but you're being treated like you have. You're not being treated like the adult that you are. Yes, you made some mistakes, big deal.
She started to open up and say she was quite depressed and actually tried to kill herself at one point. They then change their tactics and start to confront her. They tell her that they know that she's involved and she needs to tell them what happened. They say they understand why she did it. Her parents are controlling and it took her over the edge, but she just needed to tell them what happened.
You need to tell me what went on, because you know who was in that house that night. But you were part of the planning, right? You have to tell me that part, and then we're going to work through it together.
After finally breaking her down, she confesses. However, she says it wasn't to kill her parents, it was to kill her. She said how she'd hired a hitman to come into the house just to kill her, as she was a disappointment to her family and wanted to kill herself, but couldn't even do that.
So we're supposed to take him? What? Okay. So we're supposed to take the whole family out?
No, just me.
What went wrong?
She didn't change her story, and she said they were there to kill her and had never meant to hurt her parents. But the police had more questions, as they were saying, well, how come they killed your parents, not you? What went wrong? They didn't even touch you, but killed your parents. If they were there to kill you, why didn't they do the job? Or why didn't you do it yourself? Why did you hire a hitman to come into the house and kill you? She wouldn't say any more, and she just said that they were there to kill her. After their investigation, the police found out that Jennifer had tried to kill her parents twice. She had first hired a hitman from one of her friends and gave him $1,500 to carry out the job. However, he had ghosted her and ran away with her money. After getting back with her boyfriend, they had decided that they needed to kill her parents. They decided to stage a home invasion and got 3 of their accomplices to come and help them. The plan was that Jennifer would go downstairs, unlock the front door, and then flick the light 3 times. When they saw that, they would enter the house, ransack the house, and kill her parents. What they didn't anticipate was that her father would survive, and the police would question why she was never hurt. Jennifer went to trial on the 14th of March in 2014 and pleaded not guilty. During the trial, her interrogations were used against her, but the most damning evidence was the 116 text messages between her and her boyfriend leading up to the day of the murder. They thought by having burner phones that they would not get tracked. However, little did they know, the police were able to pull up their whole conversation. They went through in detail of their plan of what had happened that night. It was enough evidence to find them both guilty of murder. Their 3 accomplices were also found guilty of murder after finding their DNA and witness statements that saw them during the event. They are all found guilty of murder with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Jennifer is currently in Grand Valley Institute in Ontario and is eligible for parole in November 2035. So that's the end of this case. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.
You call me a saint, but you know I'm a stranger, all willing and able.